Happy Monday, folks, and welcome back to Hashtag AskGSM. Hope you guys enjoyed your Easter, whatever holiday you celebrated this past weekend. I know I did. Back here on campus to give you guys another edition of Hashtag AskGSM here today. And as always, if you want to send in a question, you can tweet me on Twitter at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. You can find me on Facebook, leave a comment on the wall, or the post that I usually put up on Sunday nights at Graham GSM Matthews. All the links are down below, and you can also leave a comment on this very video, and I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. So as always, guys, we're moving forward after WrestleMania last week. Still a lot of great questions coming from you guys all over Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all over social media. So kicking it off, as always, with Jose K. His question was, could Roman Reigns just become a heel instead of a face and then turn? It seems to be easier to be a heel and just beat everyone up and say that they will hate you, like Rusev has a strong accent and makes people hate him. And if he becomes a heel, he could change to a face eventually and get as much hype as many other superstars have gotten as baby faces before doing that. I feel that it could help his character. So basically, in a nutshell, what Jose is asking, can he go heel and then later on go face? I absolutely agree. I mean, look no further than The Rock. I mean, I've said this before, that Roman Reigns is this generation's version of The Rock, which I kind of take back now, considering his mic skills are nowhere near The Rock's. But that being said, I mean, The Rock was not a superstar right off the bat. You go back and look at his days as Rocky Maivia, people were booing the shit out of him. I mean, he was a vanilla babyface, very, very vanilla. I mean, he was very one-dimensional, and it wasn't until, the Die Rocky Die chance when they eventually turned him heel, had him join the Nation of Domination, did some of the best work of his career in that group, and became one of the greatest heels in the company at that time, and then became one of the most beloved superstars of all time when he eventually turned back babyface a short time later. So, I mean, if it could work for The Rock, it could work for Roman Reigns. The guy was great in the Shield. You didn't hear anyone complaining, for the most part, and I understand that Roman Reigns did not have many singles matches as a part of the Shield. He had, of course, he was protected in part of the Shield in the six-man tag team matches, allowing Ambrose and Rollins to do most of the work. And when Roman Reigns would tag into the match and do, his big spots, the Superman punch, the spear, whatever, it would, people would pop big for it. That being said, though, I feel like he is improving. I'm not a Roman Reigns hater. I really like Roman Reigns. Like I said before, he just was not ready for that world title push, and I'm glad they changed plans. And I don't believe the fact that, Seth Rollins from the start was the handpicked guy to win last night, or at WrestleMania last week. It was obviously supposed to be Roman Reigns, conquering the Beast, Brock Lesnar, considering the fact they were also probably convinced that Lesnar was leaving after WrestleMania. So that being said, I feel like, he wasn't ready. I'm still a huge Roman Reigns fan. He has improved a lot in his matches with Lesnar, which Jose's next question pertains to, and I'll get to that in a second. Daniel Bryan and a few other, Seth Rollins. He's had a lot of good breakout singles matches so far in the last couple of months, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he continues to improve going forward. But to answer his question, though, I do feel like, yes, going heel at some point, whether it be in the near future or later this year or whatever, I feel like it would be better for his growth. If he continues on the path that he's currently going on, I mean, he has his, moments of greatness where he's booked great and he has really good, breakout performances, and some promos are better than others. But more often than not, they book this guy like John Cena 2.0, which is what he should not be, if anything, but a John Cena 2.0 is what he should not be. We already have a John Cena for 10 years. We've had this guy over 10 years, but the current incarnation, you know what I mean? We don't need another one. If anything, Roman Reigns should be vastly different, the complete opposite, the alternative to John Cena. So that's how I feel like he should be booked. But a heel turn and then going back babyface down the line, I feel like, yes, could help Roman Reigns in the long term. Jose's second question here. He's saying that also people are saying that Roman Reigns had a great match at WrestleMania, but I mostly saw him do the Superman punch and the spear. Like what I don't see what's different in that match than what he's done on Raw every single week. Can you elaborate on how he had a good match at WrestleMania? I prefer diversity, and when I see guys like Seth Rollins, Cesaro, Rusev, and even John Cena when he did the springboard stunner at WrestleMania. So the match at WrestleMania between him and Brock Lesnar, I said last week I thought it was an excellent main event. More people asked questions about it. I'll get to that in a little bit. I thought it was a great main event. I don't know if I would call it the best main event in WWE history, in WrestleMania history. John and I, main evented or ranked every main event in WrestleMania history. I don't know if I would put it number 1 or even in the top 5, but I feel like, was it the most well-wrestled matchup? Absolutely not. It wasn't, Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart, but it wasn't supposed to be. they told an amazing story, and I feel like Roman Reigns, and while I was not a fan of him smirking and whatever, like I said, we get enough of that with John Cena. He shrugs off all the insults and just laughs at him. In wrestling with John Cena, it's not going to work. That's what makes people hate him even more. He probably understands that, and that's why he continues to do it. Or at least the IWC audience does not like that. Whatever, though. With Roman Reigns, though, I feel like the match at WrestleMania was a breakout performance. I felt like both he and Brock had a great matchup. Like I said before, I don't like the fact that he kicked out of 3 F5s. RJ and I were texting each other right after the next day after the matchup, after the show. And, his first question to me was, did they make Roman Reigns look too strong? And I absolutely agree. I feel like they did. And having him kick out of 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 F5s, and almost a 4th. Brock Lesnar hit a 4th F5. Whether he would have kicked out of that, we'll never know, because Seth Rollins eventually came in, and the rest is history. But I feel like, not even The Undertaker, not even John Cena kicked out of 3 F5s at SummerSlam last year. Not even The Undertaker when his streak was broken. So I feel like that was a little too much for Roman Reigns to make him look too strong. I know that's kind of a cliche now after the whole Punk podcast, make Roman Reigns look strong, but that's exactly what it was. That said, though, I feel like I really like the story, and that I talked about last week, that the ending outcome was either going to make or break that matchup. If Roman Reigns kicked out of 3 F5s and beat Lesnar with 1 Superman punch, or 1 spear, then I would have been pissed. That would have been really bad. That would have been too Cena-esque. But the way they played it off, the booking at the end, and, like I said, the blood, which, whether it was intentional or not, I saw the GIF. It looked like he was busted open hard way. He had to cut the next day, so it looked like he was busted open hard way. But then again, the GIF was pretty convincing. But that's another topic for another day. I feel like, yes, the match at WrestleMania was really good. And yes, most of what you saw was what you usually see out of Roman Reigns in his repertoire. The spear, the Superman punch, the whatever. But the way it was booked, though, I feel like is what made him look like a superstar. In that, it took, him 3 Superman punches before he finally got Brock Lesnar down. And the crowd anticipation, the excitement, everything about that matchup was so perfect. And that's why it worked. Like I said, it was not the most well-wrestled matchup in the world. It was no HBK versus Shawn Michaels. It wasn't any Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, which celebrated 6 years, by the way, yesterday. An amazing matchup. It goes without saying, obviously. But still, it was not a mat classic, but from a storytelling standpoint, which I'm a huge sucker for, because maybe I'm just biased in saying this, but I feel like from a storytelling standpoint, it was phenomenal. I loved every minute of it. So up next, Justin G's got a couple Facebook questions. First one being, a couple of weeks ago, Rhino came back to the WWE, but under the NXT brand. Do you actually see Rhino becoming the NXT champion, and how would you book Rhino storyline-wise for his quest to the championship? I don't know if I've talked about this here on the show before, but I know I've said it elsewhere, like on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. I'm a huge fan of Rhino coming back. I'm a big Rhino fan. He's not my favorite wrestler or anything like that, but for the last couple of years, almost 3 years ago to the day, I feel like, and I don't know, I think I was listening to his theme song nonstop, his WWE theme, and I was like, I really want to see this guy back in WWE. The guy's the beast. He's a man Rhino. He's named Rhino for a reason. The guy's spear is incredible. He's a powerhouse. He's a good worker, even at the age of whatever he is now, 40-something years old. I know I'm not a huge fan of bringing trotting the ECW guys out there and having them chant ECW. Rhino, to me, I was never a huge ECW guy. I didn't grow up in that era. But unlike guys like Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman and Sabu, who do scream ECW to me, Rhino, to me, doesn't, scream that. He doesn't, represent ECW. There was a brief ECW chant when he first came back, but other than that, that's it. To me, I'm not going to say he represents TNA, but when I see Rhino, I think of his WWE work. It's sometimes his ECW work, but mostly his TNA and WWE work. And maybe that's just because I've been watching for the last 7 or 8 years, back in, since 2008. So it's still a little different for me than it is for most people. I understand that. That said, though, do I want to see him as NXT champion? Not really. I wouldn't mind it, but I feel like with Kevin Owens, he should not be the one to beat Kevin Owens, be the first one to give him his first loss. If anything, I feel like building Rhino up as a legitimate challenger, as a credible challenger, contender to the NXT championship, will give Kevin Owens a good opponent before he eventually faces Sami Zayn in a rematch, or Finn Balor again, or whoever. I feel like it's a great stepping stone for him. Rhino is no schmuck. I like Brian Kendrick, but the guy never really did much in WWE. So as great of a worker as he is, a win over him does not mean much. With Rhino, the guy is a former ECW champion, I believe, ECW World Champion, United States champion, multi-time, tag team champion in WWE and TNA respectively. The guy's got a lot of accolades. He's a seasoned veteran who can still go. The people care about him. They go nuts for him every time he comes out. When he came back, I went nuts. And when he wrestled last week. So I feel like, do I want to see him as NXT champion? Not really, but I feel like he is there, like Brian Kendrick and all the other guys are brought in there to do, is to put over who is currently there. The guys like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Finn Balor, and the list goes on and on and on. That's the role that he should play. He doesn't have to lose every match. He's already got a few squash wins under his belt, and that's what I feel like he's best at. He's not the greatest worker in the world, but in small doses, the guy can be a lot of fun. And I feel like a match against Kevin Owens, who he has wrestled in the past, maybe at a Ring of Honor show, I don't remember when it was. I saw on some comment boards someone mentioned that they had a match like a long time ago, and it was incredible, and I would love to see it in NXT for the NXT Championship. So I would have to say no to a Rhino NXT Champion reign, but as a contender, I'm all for it, if built properly. And how I would build it, your question was also, I mean, just keep on giving him wins, keep on doing what you're doing. I feel like so far so good with Rhino, and keep on giving him quick wins and confronting guys like Sami Zayn and Finn Balor, saying, I want that NXT title. I think it's great. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Justin's second question was, from what it looks like, WWE has bluffed the Mighty Mouse character for Adrian Neville, or just Neville now. I guess Adrian is out of the books. I was actually, on a side note though, I was not too frustrated with the nixing of the Adrian name. It's not the greatest name in the world anyway. Adrian just sounds like a generic name. He wasn't a huge fan of it when he was first given. I mean, I know he's grown to like it, but I think it was in an interview with Jericho, he said he didn't really care for the name at all. But, I mean, I'm fine with just Neville. It's not the first time they've done this. They did it with Big E and Rusev and Cesaro, so it's not the first time. Won't be the last, and it's not that bad either. It's just Neville. I mean, I don't know why some people are bent out of shape. I'm not saying it's wrong to be bent out of shape by that, but I'm just saying, me personally, I didn't really care. But anyway, his question was, what do you think about Neville's role? What will it be now that he's called up to the main roster? Potential pay-per-view headliner in due time? No, I don't think so. I mean, I really like Neville. I think he's a great talent, but as I've said time and time again on Wrestle Rant Radio, here in this forum and wherever else, he's a great worker, but I mean, his size, I mean, he's a really small guy. And, I mean, Daniel Bryan, CM Punk have kind of proved that theory wrong, have broken the mold, so to speak, broken the glass ceiling. But he doesn't have, I mean, unlike Bryan and Punk, he doesn't have the presence of a world champion. So I mean, if he does, prove me wrong. I would love to see WWE book him properly, in a main event slot. Personally, I can't see him being WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Like I said, would be great. Would love to see it. The guy's an amazing athlete. His Red Arrow finisher is incredible. The people went crazy for him last week when he debuted on Raw. I mean, of course, that's the post-WrestleMania crowd. How he fares tonight on Raw in front of whatever crowd it might be, it remains to be seen. Obviously I'm taping this before Raw. If you watch this after all, you'll know better than I am. I am right now. But, yeah, like I said, I feel like Neville, I mean, although he's not a potential pay-per-view headliner, as you put it, I feel like he can be a very solid mid-card act. And even then, I don't know if WWE would use him correctly. Guys like Bo Dallas and Adam Rose and, Big E, Xavier Woods, who could all be in that mid-card level, aren't. They're undercard acts. Either because, WWE doesn't know how to use them or whatever else, because they'd be lost in the shuffle. I know there is that concern right now that he would be lost in the shuffle, and especially with the mid-card belts being held by upper echelon guys like Daniel Bryan and John Cena, Neville might not get a second glance. But I feel like, I'm not going to say that they would bring him up if they didn't have a plan for him, because obviously they proved me wrong with that with Adam Rose and Bo Dallas. They had no plans for him. They just called him up just to be called up because they were all done. They had done everything there was to do. Or at least in Bo Dallas' case. I don't know about Adam Rose. Of course not Adam Rose. He was called up like 2 weeks after he got repackaged. But when they were brought up, they had no plan for him. I feel like hopefully they are high enough on Neville that they would not, I mean, no pun intended, high enough, high flower, haha. But I feel like they wouldn't bring him up if they didn't have a plan for him. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Intercontinental or United States champion, but hopefully they do have something for him to do for the near future. Someone mentioned him, or brought it to my attention, at JJF Tweets. Jared, great guy, always sending great questions whenever he does. But he mentioned to me last week on Twitter, and I thought this was a phenomenal idea, that you have him go after Sheamus, because I believe Sheamus mentioned in his SmackDown promo last week that he is targeting the underdogs and all this other stuff. He's where have all the real men gone, whatever. And given their UK background, I feel like a match between Sheamus and Neville, a feud, whatever, would be so awesome. And I would love to see that at some point. He's not at that level right now, but in due time, if they keep him undefeated for a while, give him a few good wins, build him up to some feud with guys like, I don't know, Dean Ambrose, a Bad News Barrett would be great. Now that Bad News Barrett is not champion anymore, and I'll get to him in a few minutes. Someone else asked a question about him. Now that he is not champion anymore, I would love to see a Barrett-Neville feud. I feel like that would be great. It doesn't have to be over a championship, just a regular feud between those two. I mean, I know Barrett does not mean much right now. He loses every match he's a part of. But it would be cool to see Barrett and Neville in a feud together before long. But potential pay-per-view headliner, probably not. Very likely not. But hopefully he is a solid mid-card act in the years to come. Justin's next question was, in recent weeks, we have seen Emma on NXT feuding with Bayley. Do you think the reason is that she is in NXT is because she is being put on punishment from the WWE? Or do you think that Emma still needs more time down in NXT to develop her ring skills? I don't see it as a punishment. I mean, NXT is not like, go here, you're banished. I mean, NXT, if anything else, is a place where you want to be. I don't know who it was. I think it was Justin Gabriel who mentioned in his podcast, his interview with Jericho on Talk is Jericho a couple months ago. I think about a month or so ago. He mentioned he just showed up at NXT because they had nothing else for him. He just showed up and they didn't tell him to go there. He just showed up, worked the match, and he was there for a couple months before he got released. So, I mean, maybe she just showed up and they just found something for her to do because God knows they're not doing anything with her on the main roster right now. So they might as well be doing something with her in NXT. And I love what they're doing because, I mean, I like the dancing gimmick. I know it's not for everybody. I mean, it wasn't working, obviously, so they had to switch it up. They're turning her heel. I think it's great. A slow burn heel turn for Emma. And that character development is something that NXT has. I mean, there's a lot of things that NXT has over the main roster, but one thing I love, specifically with the women, is that they give them character development. You look at girls like Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks, and I think even Charlotte, too. A lot of these women had slow-burning heel turns. They didn't go heel automatically. They had this slow burn that kind of teased it, did a few backstage segments, and I'm glad they're doing that with Emma. She, because like I said, Lord knows she's an amazing talent. She deserves to be used better. And I think the thing with Bayley can be great before both of them kind of move on to bigger and better things. Bayley especially, I feel like, can be a great NXT Women's Champion, and she can be the one to unseat Sasha Banks at some point. And with Emma, it's not a punishment. I feel like, they're not doing anything with her on the main roster, so she might as well go back to NXT where she can actually wrestle a match and can get a decent reaction and can develop her character, whatever. So I would absolutely go with the latter with your question. She's down there to further develop, not her ring skill. She's already a great talent. It's more of her character and kind of giving her a reboot. Much like Tyson Kidd, when he went back down to NXT, turned heel, did, everything with the Natty's husband. Some of the best stuff that NXT had all year, and that's really saying something given how NXT has been amazing for the last 2 or 3 years now. I feel like Tyson Kidd was one of the MVPs of NXT in 2014. I feel like Emma can be that for the women if they use her properly, if she turns heel at some point in the near future, and they can continue to develop her feud with Bayley properly. Moving on to the Twitter questions here, at Brad Berdar. Always great question from Brad. And I forgot to mention that at the start, but always appreciate you guys sending in the questions. There's a lot of you guys that send in multiple questions a week. More the better. I mean, I can't get into as in-depth as I usually can because I can't sit here for 2 hours. As much as I would love to, my schedule does not allow that, unfortunately. But a lot of you guys send in multiple questions, and I think it's great. So I would just like to say I appreciate that. It really does mean a lot to me. But, Brad always sends in questions. I don't mean to slight anyone else because there's a lot of people at Daniel Cabeza and Jared a few times, and especially Justin, who always sends in the Facebook questions every single week, usually around the same time. Always appreciate you guys sending in the questions. Multiple questions asked at that. You can send in 1, you can send in 5. Can't always go as in-depth as I would like, but, more questions the better. It's you guys that keep the show going. So like I said, always appreciate it. Brad's question, first one, with AJ Lee gone, does that ruin any chance of making fans care about the Divas division, or at least in the short term? I don't think so. I mean, I feel like, AJ Lee, I talked about this in depth in my latest random video blog this past week. If you want to go back and check it out and here on the channel. So I won't go, into detail here. But she did basically everything there was to do. Let's say she stuck around. I'm very disappointed that she left, and especially in the manner that she did. Maybe she'll cut a promo tonight on Raw. I have no idea. Kind of addressing the fans. But I would love to see her, like this is my last match, like Trish style, Lita style, and then maybe a stretch to put her on that level of those women who revolutionized women's wrestling. But it's really not. I mean, there's really not many women in terms of wrestlers. I mean, there's Vicky and Stephanie, but they're not wrestlers. Maybe Eve too, and maybe a few others in the last 5-10 years that have had as big of an impact on women's wrestling that AJ has. And it goes far beyond the wrestling too. The stuff with CM Punk and Daniel Bryan and Kane, the Raw general manager stuff, Divas champion, the longest reigning in history. She's had a Hall of Fame career, and I mean, that's his next question. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I mean, I feel like she did everything there was to do. If she won, or she did win a WrestleMania, what else is there to do? Continue chasing the belt? You know, she's not going to win it back. She's probably going to go to somebody else. So what else is there to do with AJ Lee? I feel like at that point, you know, there really isn't nothing else for her to do, so I don't blame her for leaving. I don't like the manner in which she left. Not her fault, but I mean, I feel like, you know, announcing abruptly, I feel like we should have gotten some promo. And maybe we will. I hate to repeat myself here, but going back to what I was saying before, I digress. With AJ Lee gone, will the Divas division, you know, will people still care about it? I think so. I mean, there's enough talent in that Divas division. AJ Lee did not carry the women. There you have Paige, the Bella Twins, who I'm not a huge fan of. I've said this before, but I respect the hell out of them. They've improved a lot. Nikki, especially in the ring, on the mic, as a character, I think she's come a long way in the last year or so, much less the last 6 or 7 or 8 years. They've both come a really long way. So they're doing a great job. You have a lot of other great talent in the division right now. Not a huge Eva Marie fan or a Cameron fan or even a Rosa Mendes fan, God forbid. But you got Naomi, who's quickly being pushed to title contention, which I think is great. Naomi is very, very good. About time that she finally got her due as Divas champion. She's also been here for 5 years. I know AJ, you know, we made a big deal about her being here for 5 years and having this amazing career. Naomi, she has not had an amazing career in the 5 years she's been here, because most of that time she was paired with Cameron, a part of the Funkadactyls, whatever. But you know, it was also 5 years ago this September that she debuted on NXT too, the same season as Caitlyn, as AJ, Maxine, and a few others. So yeah, I feel like Naomi's going to be taking the ball and running with it. Charlotte too. I mean, I forgot to mention that in the video blog, but RJ brought it to my attention that do you feel like with AJ gone, they're going to be calling up Charlotte to kind of fill that void? I absolutely think so. I feel like maybe not tonight, maybe not ASAP. I mean, Charlotte is another person who has done everything there is to do in NXT. You know, she was champion for a very long time. I don't know if she beat Paige's record as the longest reigning. I don't think she did. I think she came close. But, you know, she's had great matches with everybody, so she's kind of at a point where she needs to move on to the main roster. And now's the time with AJ Lee gone. She should have been called up last week. And I feel like Sasha, you should give her a nice run with the belt and call Charlotte up first. But yeah, now's the perfect time to bring up Charlotte, and people will still care about the Divas if they can continue to give them time and storylines, which they have been for the last couple of weeks. I've said that before. I'm really happy with how WWE is kind of taking a turn for the better. This turning point in the Divas division right now in women's wrestling in WWE, where they're starting to take them more seriously, where they gave them like 15 minutes of in-ring time last week on Raw. And for a 3-hour show, that should be the norm, but we know that's not usually the case. Usually they get 1 or 2 minutes in a throwaway match that people don't usually care about. So with AJ gone, the Divas division is not doomed. They just got to work a little bit harder to kind of fill up that void. And like I said before, hopefully bringing up Charlotte will solve that problem. This next question just pretty much just answered that. This question, has AJ Lee had a Hall of Fame worthy career? Absolutely. First ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, usually they induct one woman a year. And, I mean, there's not that many women left that should go into the Hall of Fame. And we had Alundra Blaze in, Trish, we've had Lita in recent years. How many more women can be left? I know there's China, but like we've talked about before, as we've come to know in the last couple of months, that may not be likely anytime in the near future, if ever, unfortunately. But are there many other women to be inducted in the coming years? I mean, I'm trying to think. We already have Wendy Richter, Fabulous Moolah, Mae Young. I'm sure there's others. I mean, maybe not Jackie, Nydia, not Nydia. Maybe Jackie. I'm trying to think of Ivory, maybe. And there's a few others from that Attitude Era that I would probably put in at some point. AJ's not going to go in next year, maybe, I don't know, but I don't think she needs to. But yeah, absolutely. I feel like, you know, like I talked about before, there is not one woman who has had as much of an impact on women's wrestling in WWE, on the Divas division, than AJ Lee since Trish has left. She really opened up new eyes. Paige too, but I mean, in the 5 years that AJ was here, like I said, it listed off her accomplishments. Raw general manager. She was in some of the highest rated segments of the night. One of the best merch sellers for the women in quite some time. She was involved in the WWE title picture, associated herself with Dolph Ziggler and John Cena. Punk, Bryan, Kane, the list goes on and on and on. Longest reigning Divas champion in history, tied for most reigns with Eve Torres with 3 as Divas champion. So she's had a hell of a lot of success in WWE. Absolutely Hall of Fame worthy. Will her issues with the company prevent her from getting in? Maybe, but I don't think she has issues. I mean, I think she left on amicable terms with the company, much unlike CM Punk did, unlike her husband. But I feel like she will be in the WWE Hall of Fame before long. Next question from Brad. What did you find to be the most intriguing part of your interview with Goldust? So I did an interview with Goldust, not recently. It was from like November of 2012. I did not have time to film a Wrestle Rant video last Tuesday, so I just threw that up there. There's a whole bunch of interviews that I've done over the last couple of years. That there's like 12 or 13 of them here on the channel that I've yet to publish. I just don't like to publish like multiple things on one day, with the exception of the Wrestle Rant radio excerpts. Other than that, I usually only upload, like this video on Mondays. I have a set schedule. I'm just like I'm a goof like that. I just like to upload things to the day that they are, and I upload shit every single day. So there's really not time to put up the interviews, and I just put up that one because I had a blank spot in the schedule last week or a blank spot because the Wrestle Rant video I was not able to film. I was not even able to watch the pay-per-view by that point. I was still burnt out from WrestleMania week and everything else. So I just uploaded that. So that's up here on the channel if you want to check it out. It's in the interview playlist if you want to see it. But like I said, I did it in like November of 2012 with my buddy Ben Gartland on my Spoilers podcast and Blog Talk Radio from a couple of years ago. Really, really cool. Someone left a comment on the video asking how I got the interview. We actually followed each other on Twitter for a couple of years, not so much anymore. But at one point we were following each other. I sent him a DM, asked him if he wanted to be on the show, if he wanted to do an interview. And this was before he re-signed with WWE. This was like I said, November 2012 when he had already left the company and before he came back. And we talked to him for like a solid half an hour, had a great time, asked him all these different questions. Most intriguing part, easily asking him about something I really wanted to know for a long time, why his feud with Cody Rhodes never really came to fruition. And at that point, I mean, he talks about it all the time now, but at that point, he really had not gone into detail about it as to why that feud never really came to be at WrestleMania 28, and he really went in depth with that, and I really appreciated it. I thought it was a great answer, a great interview, a great talk, and like I said, you can check it out for yourself here on the channel. So, yeah, definitely talking about his feud with Cody Rhodes, and it's interesting, too, you listen to that back now, and he said, I don't want that match to happen anywhere else but at WrestleMania, and they fucked it up and they did it at Fastlane instead about a month or so ago, and I've talked about that in the past, how they botched that feud, and how it really, really bothers me that it never really came to a head. That said, though, I mean, he talked about, I don't want it to happen on a B pay-per-view or even at SummerSlam. I needed to happen at WrestleMania. And it came close, and they fucked it up this past year. So it's kind of interesting in retrospect, listen to that back. Brad's second question, is there anything you regret not saying or asking him? Not really. I mean, I don't really regret anything in general, but I mean, I felt like I got all my questions out. And I mean, I was still kind of a casual fan, so I asked him about what I know best, like the stuff with Cody Rhodes. I didn't really ask him about anything about his WCW career. I mean, we asked him about like the origin of his gimmick and stuff like that, and his stuff with Booker T, which I thought was great. Some of my favorite Goldust segments. I asked him who we thought the future of the WWE was and stuff like that. So I feel like I asked him all the questions I needed to. And if there were any other questions, like I said, I would just tweet him all the time anyway. We were following each other for a while. So, no, yeah, I feel like, no, I don't regret anything, not saying to him or not asking him, because I felt like it was a great interview. I asked him everything that I wanted to, and definitely the biggest interview that I had done up to that point. So, Brad's second question, could Mark Henry be used a lot better than how he is now since his return? I mean, I'm not a huge Mark Henry fan. I do like Mark Henry. I love this Hall of Pain stuff, though, and his 2011 run. His 2011 run and what he did with John Cena a couple years ago, the whole retirement angle, one of the best Raw segments in recent memory, if ever. But yeah, I think Mark Henry right now, I don't even think he was on TV last week. What more could you be doing with him? I mean, at WrestleMania, his spot was in that battle royal. There was really no other place in the card to put him. The guy's, 40-something years old. He's very injury prone. There's really not much more you could do with him. I don't see him getting another world title run or anything like that. And he always loses too. It's not like, he's a big credible superstar right now, despite the great work that he put in a couple of years ago in 2011 and 2012 and 2013. Since then, he's done squat, so people really have no reason to take him seriously. And it doesn't help matters that they turned the guy heel last year, and then he disappeared, and he came back as the babyface, so it makes no sense. But, no, I mean, I don't look at Mark Henry as an underutilized talent. I feel like I can tolerate Mark Henry a little bit more than the Big Show. I mean, that's very biased because they're very similar in a lot of ways. But I feel like his character development is a lot better than Big Show's. Big Show's constantly turning, and so is Mark Henry. But at least with Mark Henry, though, I feel like I could tolerate him a little bit more, along with Kane too. But I mean, what else do you do with Mark Henry right now? It's not like they could be using him for a big time feud. There's not much they could be doing with Mark Henry at this point in time. So they could be doing more with him, but it doesn't bother me that he's really not on TV that much because he's winding down his career anyway. His last question, Brad's last question here. Would you agree that the entire WrestleMania 31 main event, was booked perfectly? Absolutely. Like I said before, I feel like the ending outcome was either going to make it or break it, and it absolutely made it. And, just the punishment that Roman Reigns took, kind of shades of SummerSlam. Like I said, the smirking kind of not took away from it, but I just wasn't a fan. And the booking of John Cena, the Cena-esque booking of Roman Reigns, mixing up the Cena and Roman Reigns here, that's how similar they are. But, I think for the most part it was booked pretty perfectly, especially that ending. I mean, I talked about last week, someone asked the question. I was talking about it with my buddy John, @_John's Jargon on Twitter. We talked about it. Was that the most epic ending, the greatest ending in WrestleMania history? I mean, an argument can be made. I can't say yes definitively, depending on how the aftermath goes. It's only been a week. We got to wait at least another year, in my opinion. I know that's a while away, but we got to see how Seth Rollins' reign kind of goes out, and Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, see what happens. But, I feel like it was 99% booked perfectly. The ending, the layout of the match, Roman Reigns looked good. 3 F5s, not a huge fan of, but it was what it was. Brock Lesnar looked like a beast. He wasn't pinned. Roman Reigns looks fine. He continues his chase for the championship, and Seth Rollins is champion. The surprise cash-in the middle of the match. First time ever at WrestleMania. So, 99% I would say it was booked pretty perfectly. At DC94_. His question was, what's next for Bad News Barrett, the Intercontinental Championship, the Money in the Bank, or neither? I'm done. I am fucking done with the Intercontinental Championship around Bad News Barrett's waist. It's not his fault, but they have booked him so poorly as champion. Not once, not twice, but 5 times. All 5 of his reigns were complete shit. Like I said, not his fault. Actually, I take that back. His 4th one last year was not that bad. It didn't last very long, but he was given a few good wins over Big E and Rob Van Dam and Dolph Ziggler. That was probably his best reign by far. The other 4 reigns, complete garbage because he always lost, was booked to look like shit. And, so I'm done with Bad News Barrett as Intercontinental Champion for a long time to come. Money in the Bank, it's interesting you mentioned that. I've been, petitioning for this for a while. I know it might be hypocritical to say, no, I don't want to see him as Intercontinental Champion, but I do want to see him as Mr. Money in the Bank. At least as Mr. Money in the Bank, you're not a champion. You don't have a title around your waist, or at least not yet. And, people as Mr. Money in the Bank in the past, Daniel Bryan, Damien Sandow, and all these other guys have lost. I mean, Damien Sandow's not a great example because he lost his Money in the Bank briefcase title shot when he cashed in against John Cena, obviously, and the rest is history. But, a lot of the Mr. Money in the Banks in recent memory have lost matches in the past, and it's fine because they end up cashing in to win that title successfully. If Bad News Barrett was to win it, and I feel like he should have won it last year, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. Bad News Barrett, I think he was won in 2011, actually. Daniel Bryan mentioned in some interview that he was going to Bad News Barrett, or Wade Barrett, whatever the hell you want to call him, was scheduled to win it back in 2011, but they changed the plans at the last minute because they already had a heel going over in Del Rio later on the night, so they gave it to Bryan instead. So, Bad News Barrett's been fucked over like multiple times in the past. But that being said, I would love to see him as Mr. Money in the Bank this year. I think that'd be great. And instead of him losing constantly, like a lot of the past former Mr. Money in the Banks, Seth Rollins is the exception. I feel like he was booked almost perfectly with that briefcase as Mr. Money in the Bank. He was in a lot of main events, pay-per-views, and stuff like that. So he's the exception. But in the case of Bad News Barrett, he should win more matches after winning that briefcase, because God knows he needs the credibility right now after losing so many matches, so many forgettable guys, Sin Cara, R-Truth, Santino, all these job guys I don't give 2 shits about, so they need to kind of move away from that and give him some good wins as Mr. Money in the Bank. So I feel like, yes, I would love to see him as Mr. Money in the Bank. Is it likely? Absolutely not. I feel like WWE has kind of lost sight of what to do with Bad News Barrett. After 5 years of being with the company, or, he's been in the main roster for 5 years. He's been with WWE longer. But I kind of not complete lost hope, I have not completely lost hope in them, in a world title run for him, but my faith is kind of running out when it comes to the booking of this guy, because they've, poorly misutilized him time and time again over the last 5 years. So, is it likely that he wins the briefcase? Probably not. Would I love to see him as the briefcase? Definitely, with the briefcase. So of your 3 choices here, what's next for him? IC title, Money in the Bank, or neither? Probably neither, unfortunately. But I would love to see him as Mr. Money in the Bank. This year, I feel like it's his time, or Cody Rhodes or Barrett. I feel like I've been, do that briefcase for a very long time. Both guys can be world champion. Just been stuck with shitty gimmicks and shitty booking and so on and so forth. At Marbo_82, his question was, how far do you think Marty Jannetty could have gone had it not been for the issues that he had? Probably not too far. I mean, I know he had his issues, and that was kind of what spelled the end for Marty Jannetty in WWE. But I mean, it was obvious of the two that Shawn Michaels was the guy, that he was the breakout single star. Excuse me. He was the one that was going to go places. Marty Jannetty was never a top-tier talent. He was maybe a good mid-card guy, but he was never, ever going to be world champion. I think that goes without saying. I mean, a good worker. I mean, he was not terrible. He was a job guy for most of his run, unfortunately, but I feel like he hit his peak when he, had the Intercontinental title feud with Shawn Michaels, and when he came back to the crowd, a great moment in Raw history. That was kind of his peak, and that's where he should have been. He could have been a really good mid-carder. Was never going to be on the same level as Shawn Michaels in terms of main event status. But yeah, could have been a decent mid-carder, never world champion, but that's probably where he would have fit in the card had he not had so many issues, as you mentioned. At Daniel Cabeza 59, a couple questions here. First one being, in your opinion, what is next for Neville that he's on the main roster? Like I talked about before, I feel like he is limited in what they could do with him, because right now you have the mid-card belts around upper echelon guys, and they're not going to drop it to Neville. Probably not. I mean, like I said, prove me wrong, but I just don't see it happening. He's never going to be world champion, I don't think, anyway. And like I said, I'm not hating on Neville. I think he's a great talent. I'm a big fan of his. I just don't see how far he can go on the main roster. I've said that time and time again. Right now, though, what's next for him? I feel like probably just a couple wins over this guy and that guy for weeks to come on Raw and SmackDown, and maybe at Extreme Rules he gets the match against whoever. I don't know, like Bad News Barrett or something. I think that could be really, really cool. But yeah, for right now, I feel like just kind of getting a feud under his feet, getting a feud under his feet, working some really good matches, and kind of, just getting experience, building a following with the WWE Universe and stuff like that, now that he's on the main roster. So, yeah, I don't know if a mid-card title is in his future right now, maybe at some point, but for right now, he's probably just going to be going back and forth with wins over random guys before transitioning into a feud with either a guy like Bad News Barrett, or I'm trying to think of it like another mid-card heel right now, or Rusev, or something like that. And that might be a little too up there for Neville right now, but at some point, that'd be a really good feud match. Him and Rusev, him and Barrett, him and Sheamus, like I mentioned before, would be great for him. His next question, what are your thoughts on the new Grand Slam format? So I kind of ranted about this to an extent on Twitter this past weekend. Not too thrilled with it. And those that have not heard, it was not like a breaking news announcement, but in short, WWE.com had some gallery up on Saturday or Friday or whatever, with the 5 new Grand Slam champions, and it got me wondering, like, what the hell are they talking about? And not everything on Wiki is true. I understand that, but it looks like this is the new official thing. In that, I guess I looked on the Wiki page, and it looks like I said, anyone can edit Wiki, but this looks official to me. After WWE acknowledged it and the way they phrased it and worded it, whatever, that the new Grand Slam Championship format. Now, the old one, a Triple Crown, is that you had to win either the WWE or World Heavyweight Championship, the Intercontinental, not the United States, because that was property of WCW. Even the world title was too, but fuck it, whatever. The world title, I guess, was, going according to their own lineage, does not carry the same lineage as the guy who held it. The people who have held it in like 1905 and George Hackenschmidt and those guys, like NWA guys, WCW guys. The world title had its own lineage dating back to 02, as they claim. Whatever. But yeah, you had to win either the world title or WWE title, the Intercontinental Championship, and the World Tag Team titles. I don't know if the WWE Tag Team titles did count, because those were also of WWE's creation as of 2002. So that's the Triple Crown Grand Slam Championship, is all those titles, and you had to win a territorial title. Excuse me, I can't pronounce that. Part of my botch. But you had to win a European Championship or a Hardcore title. Now, you can't do that anymore, obviously, because both titles are now retired. But they've been fucking retired for 13 years. Why? Why all of a sudden would you change it? I really have no idea. I feel like, you can't accomplish that anymore. That's why they had to change it. But that's what makes it special, that you can't become Grand Slam champion anymore. The people who became Grand Slam champion in the 5-6 years that both titles were around, those are the people a part of an exclusive club that that can say they were a Grand Slam champion. I feel like reorganizing it and redefining what makes a Grand Slam champion doesn't make any sense. It's a slap in the face of the other guys. No, it's not a big deal. It just kind of bothers me. I'm a traditionalist. I like the way that it was. Changing it, I guess they have this old format, now a new format. It's like Old Testament, New Testament. Like, what the fuck is this? And I guess their new definition of it is, of a Grand Slam champion, is that you have to have held every active championship in the WWE right now. So the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, which is the WWE title basically, the world title, that lineage ended when they merged the titles in 2013. The Intercontinental title, the US title, and the WWE Tag Team, which goes back to the 2002 starting point, not the World Tag Team titles. The current WWE Tag Team Championships hold the lineage of the ones that were resurrected in 2002, not the World Tag Team titles, which were retired in 2010. Does that sound confusing to you? Because it's definitely confusing to me. So, yeah, I don't fucking get it. And I just don't, the part that makes it worse, that's one thing to do, but the part that makes it worse is that every active title can mean anything. Like, what if they merge the mid-card titles again? Like, do you have to have held the United States Championship too? Like, the definition of what makes a Grand Slam champion should be concrete and set in stone, should not be ever changing. You know what I mean? I don't like it. I'm not a huge fan of it. Like I said, is it a big deal? Definitely not. And in comparison to everything else going on right now in WWE, in the world itself, not something I'm going to lose sleep over. But I don't know. I just thought it was stupid in my opinion. Next question. How long do you expect Daniel Bryan should hold the Intercontinental Championship? And after that, what do you think Bryan's role should be? I would love to see him hold the belt until SummerSlam and merge it with the world title. Dream scenario and a Warrior-like scenario where he becomes the first guy since Warrior. I don't count Triple H. I know Triple H did it, but he was the world champion when he merged it with the IC. Warrior was the Intercontinental champion when he merged it with the world title. So I feel like Bryan can be the first guy since Warrior, fucking, oh my god, 25 years ago almost. Almost exactly, actually, back in 1990 at WrestleMania 6 on April 1st, so about a week ago, last Tuesday. But, yeah, I feel like Daniel Bryan could be the first one to do so, beat Cena for the mid-card belt and, merge those two titles. I was never a huge fan of merging the belts, but after they merged the women's belts and the tag team titles and now the world titles, fuck it, just go all the way, just merge those belts as well. Not a huge deal. Now they're finally starting to mean something again. I get that, but you can just get away with one championship, in my opinion. I think it's fine. It kind of goes along with all the other championships being merged. It's kind of one title for each division. But yeah, I think you should hold the title for definitely a lot longer. At least until SummerSlam. If he drops it before then, it depends on who he drops it to. It's really kind of a case-by-case basis. So we'll say a day-by-day case, whatever. So we'll have to wait and see. But what should his role be after that? I don't really like to speculate because if that's, months down the line, I don't know what he does after that. I would love to think that he gets back in the main event and feuds with guys like Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar for that championship. That would be incredible. That's where he belongs. I like what he's doing right now because it's something new. It's something fresh, much like with John Cena as United States champion. So I'm not against it. I'm all for the idea of Daniel Bryan bringing prestige back to the Intercontinental Championship. But he is destined to be a main event guy. I don't care what anyone says. I feel like he is a main event guy. And that's where he should be and will be, hopefully, by the year's end. So hopefully once this IC title experiment is done with, they can move on to bigger and better things with Bryan once he's done with that championship. His next question, what do you think about the blood recently in WWE? Do you think Daniel Bryan bleeding made the feud for the Intercontinental title more interesting? So he's referring to the match with Sheamus last week on SmackDown. Bryan was cut open or busted open towards the end. It was a big deal all over social media in the days beforehand, with Sheamus being too reckless, whatever. That's just the way that Sheamus works, and, shit happens, whatever. I'm a huge Daniel Bryan fan, but I don't really, you want the Attitude Era back, but you care about people being reckless. I know it's a matter of safety and whatever, but I watched the matchup. It wasn't that bad where he was like, almost killing the guy. It wasn't like Hernandez with the border toss, I think he calls it, and almost breaking Douglas Williams' neck. Like, that's reckless. What Sheamus was doing is just a hard-hitting style. We've seen that for years, but I digress. He is referring to Bryan being busted open at the end of that matchup. Did it add to it? Absolutely. I thought it was great. And it made it cooler, too, because it looked like Bryan. I didn't see the blood, on his face before Barrett hit him with the bad news Barrett elbow, the bull hammer or whatever. So it looked like that elbow was what busted him open, and seeing the replay, that wasn't the case, but it looked gruesome. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And again, it wasn't a case of blading. It just accidentally happened. It added to it. And I feel like if it accidentally happens, I've talked about this in the past. And I know they have sponsors, so they can't do it. They have to blur it out, whatever. But if they were to allow it, I don't like blading. I feel like it is unsafe, especially with all the hepatitis cases and stuff with Abdul the Butcher and all that other shit right now. You know, in the safety of the performers, don't blade. But if they do bleed, just let it go. I mean, you can wipe it up, but don't make a huge deal about fucking ending the match and shit like that. The match ended as it was supposed to end last week on SmackDown. It didn't end because Bryan was bleeding. It just ended that way because that was the way it was supposed to end. But yeah, I feel like with Daniel Bryan, did it make it more interesting? Absolutely. But blood is not necessary. In small doses, absolutely it's necessary. Not necessary, but it definitely adds to something. Like the main event of WrestleMania. In this match, was it necessary? No, but I mean, it definitely added to it, made it more gruesome, made Barrett and Sheamus look like absolute beasts for kind of bloodying up Daniel Bryan. So, yeah, made it more interesting. And what about the blood recently? I don't like to see blading. I feel like the safety of the performer should come first. But if they do get cracked open, a little cut here and there, as long as they're not spreading blood around and kind of doing more harm to themselves, doing more damage to the wound or whatever, I'm completely okay with it. I endorse it. And his final question, Daniel's final question, what WWE character do you hate the most right now and why? Goes without saying, The Big Show. I mean, people have tweeted me in the past, oh, why do you hate The Big Show? He's a great guy. Paul White has been a dedicated veteran of this business. Give me a break, people. Obviously, you know I'm talking about Big Show. I mean, I know things can be lost in translation on Twitter. God knows people take things, they take them for how they see it on Twitter instead of, they take them, you got to take things with a grain of salt. Obviously, things get lost in translation. Words cannot, written words on the internet cannot transfer emotion. The way that I obviously didn't see the way that I tweeted, whatever, that was a while ago. But, someone said, going back to my point though, someone said that I hated The Big Show, I hated Paul White. I don't hate Paul White. I don't hate anyone in wrestling. I just hate characters. If Big Show, asked me to go get a drink with him or something, get an autograph, if he was doing an autograph signing here in the area, I would mark the hell out and I would go get an autograph. The guy seems like a really chill dude. I just don't like the Big Show character. It's not even that I hate him. It's just because he's overdone. What part about that do people not understand? The guy's been around for 25 years. He won a battle royal that he should not have. The whole fact that he didn't win a battle royal before in his career, I couldn't give two shits about it. I don't think anyone cared. And, I mean, I respect the hell out of the guy, but it's time to go. Kane, I can tolerate a little bit more, especially with the mask on. Big Show, I can't. His matches are just not interesting anymore. His peak, the last great match that he had was with Sheamus 3 years ago. So it's time for him to hang it up. There's nothing left for him to do. The constant face and heel turns is obnoxious. For him to be on TV at all, and I'm not really a huge fan, but for him to be prominently featured in the main event, that's where it crosses the line to me. Every week on Raw, it's ridiculous. But that would probably have to go to Big Show, the most despised character for me in WWE right now. Absolutely the Big Show. Anyone that knows me well knows the answer to that question without hesitation. At Cody Collier 37, who do you think has done the best rendition of America the Beautiful and the Star Spangled Banner at WrestleMania? I really don't have an answer for this. I feel like with this, I love when it's done. I mean, I can say that. There's not one person that stood out to me in watching old WrestleManias and reviewing here for the channel and watching them on the WWE Network. There wasn't one person who stood out to me as being great. They're all great, regardless of who they bring in. I didn't know who the guy who did it at WrestleMania 31. I didn't know who that guy was, but he did a great job, so who am I to complain? If I had to name somebody, probably Lillian Garcia. I think it was at 27 to 20. I think it was WrestleMania 28. She did a fantastic job of singing the Star Spangled Banner or America the Beautiful, whatever. She's an amazing singer, in her own right, and people give her shit for botching and whatever else. Give her a break. The lady's an amazing singer. Everyone makes mistakes. Maybe not as much as she does, but she's a great singer, so I can respect her for that. So she's probably the person I would go with in singing, the most memorable rendition of America the Beautiful or the Star Spangled Banner at WrestleMania to my memory. And the second question was, also, what do you think of this new WWE.com design that WWE is making right now? So he tweeted me a picture of what WWE's new .com design will look like. And it's on his Twitter. I don't have the picture here. I don't know how to edit it here on the video. I'm not that advanced. But you can check it out on his Twitter at CodyCollier37 if you want to see the picture for yourself. I don't know where I got the picture from. Maybe they tweeted it out. I looked at the WWE Twitter and I couldn't see anything. So I don't know where I got the picture from and where it leaked from. But it looks fine. I mean, the design right now, I mean, it's not bad. I like the WWE.com design. It's my homepage, my laptop. I mean, there's really no reason to change it. But, I mean, it's been like that for a while, and they usually do change the homepage design and stuff like that around this time of year, right around WrestleMania time, either before or after, or that weekend sometimes. They do change it from time to time. So it's not surprising. We've had this design for a couple of years now. But, yeah, I don't blame them for redesigning it and the new look. I mean, the new design looks good. I mean, I don't really have a problem with it. I don't love it, but it's good for what it is. And then, like I said, if you want to check it out for yourself, at CodyCollier37 on Twitter. Should be up on his page. He tweeted me that on Sunday, so you might have to go back a little bit. But next question from at WWE since 05. What is your prediction for whom Seth Rollins will face at WrestleMania 32? Good question. Probably, I said this before, but I would love to see a Shield triple threat. I mean, not only me, but a lot of people have said that. A Shield triple threat with whoever's champion, I don't really care. Ambrose, Reigns, and Rollins. Triple threat for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship would be incredible. Would absolutely pay money to see that. I mean, I love WrestleMania in of itself, but that main event would be must-see, and it would really tell the story that WWE is investing in their younger guys. We've had younger guys in the main event, don't get me wrong, in the last couple of years. Daniel Bryan, The Miz, for better or for worse, and now Roman Reigns this year, and now Seth Rollins too. But we've never had a main event, or at least in my memory in a while, in quite some time, where it was two young guys, not a young guy and a veteran. Three young guys, and Ambrose, Reigns, and Rollins would be tremendous if that was the main event for WrestleMania 32. So that's what my money is on for right now, is the main event for that pay-per-view. And I know Dean Ambrose is not on the same level as those other two guys right now in terms of where he is in the card, but as we've seen in the past, anything can happen in 1 year's time. So that's my money. That's where my money is on what match Seth Rollins will have at WrestleMania 32. Speaking of Seth Rollins, at Big Bird 432 asks, how long do you see Seth Rollins' title reign lasting? Like I said before, with Bryan's title reign, I know it's kind of like the destination to drop titles, whatever, but I feel like if he holds it until SummerSlam, it would be considered a success. I don't want to see him drop it anytime before then. It depends who it is, but I think it would be considered a success if he holds it until at least SummerSlam. And he's not going to drop it to Lesnar. I don't think Lesnar is going to hold the belt again. Don't have a huge problem with it, but been there, done that. You know, not being on TV, holding a hostage, whatever. There's really no reason to do it again. But yeah, I feel like having him hold it until SummerSlam at the earliest would be fine, if not longer. I feel like giving him a nice long title reign would be great. I mean, maybe I speak too soon and we see him drop the belt at fucking Extreme Rules. I mean, this is WWE after all, so anything is possible. But yeah, I feel like until SummerSlam at the earliest would be great for Rollins to hold that belt until. Next question at only one MDB. This question was, do you think WWE won't give Dolph Ziggler a chance of being WWE champ in the face of WWE because he's injury prone? So I talked about this, I ranted about it actually, on Wrestle Rant Radio about 9 months ago or so, but last June, and I talked about how it was absolute bullshit that WWE was not pushing him because he was injury prone. I think that is the absolute dumbest excuse, because in the 5, 6, 7, 8 years, almost 10 years actually, that Dolph Ziggler's been in the main roster in WWE under contract, he's been injured only twice. 2 concussions. One was, you know, right after WrestleMania 29. One was the following January, last January. The guy's been clean since, so I feel like, no, I don't think that's the reason why they're not pushing him. They can say that, or they can report that, or people can report that. I don't buy that for a fucking goddamn second. That it's because he's too injury prone as to why they're not pushing him. Why they're not pushing him right now, he's in a pretty good spot, so he doesn't have heat on him anymore, thankfully. But I think it's just because there's so many superstars right now atop the roster, and they just don't see him as a top guy. He always gets close, but he's never ever there. I know he had the world title reign, but I'm talking about like with the WWE Championship. He always comes oh so close, but then they just kind of knock him down a few pegs. It's always 1 step forward, 2 steps back with Dolph Ziggler, or maybe the other way around. But usually that's what it feels like to me. You know, he gets oh so close, and then they go all the way back down with Dolph Ziggler. So because he's injury prone, or the belief that he's injury prone, like I said before, is absolute bullshit, and I don't think that's the reason why they're not pushing him. First of the final few questions here comes from @Reborn Again. His question was, do you feel Roman Reigns will ultimately fail as being the guy hand-chosen by Vince McMahon? Really good question when he tweeted this in. Really got me intrigued. No, I don't think he's going to fail. I feel like, Roman Reigns, like I said before, I'm a huge fan of his. I think he has a lot of potential. He's just not where he needs to be right now. I mean, if they never put him in the main event, he would have been fine. I feel like, pushing him way too quickly is what really has took away from his progress. I mean, he's come a little bit. I mean, he has improved since SummerSlam and since he came back even a couple of months ago on the mic and in the ring as a character, whatever. For one thing, the guy needs a new theme, new attire. I mean, I like the attire. It's not too bad. It fits him, but it just screams Shield, and I feel like he needs to establish his own identity, as Ambrose and Rollins already have. I feel like, you can give him the scraps. But did Randy Orton or did Triple H or did Ric Flair come out to the Evolution theme after Evolution, after Evolution disbanded? No, he didn't. They all had their own separate themes. Same thing with the Legacy. Even Ted DiBiase had the Legacy theme for a while after Legacy disbanded. Did that do him any favors? No, it didn't. They eventually gave him a new theme, which I liked. A lot of people hated the I Came From Money song. I thought it was good anyway. But yeah, I feel like. Yeah, stray away from that. Stray away from him being the guy from the Shield. Have him be Roman Reigns. I know that's not your question. I just wanted to point that out. But I feel, Roman Reigns is great, and I feel like he can be a top main event player, if not the guy. If he can ever be the guy, well, remains to be seen. But I think there is a potential there. They just got to take their time with him. If they give him the belt next year at WrestleMania or even at SummerSlam, which I hope is not the case, would not be as opposed to it as it would be with Roman Reigns winning the belt, last Sunday at WrestleMania. But I do feel like he does have a lot of potential. He will get there in due time. We just need patience. We can't jump to conclusions, call him a failure. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I mean, some people are already calling him a failure. It's not his fault. I mean, like you said, he was handpicked by Vince. And, they handpicked John Cena. Look how that turned out. Just a lot. And what happened with John Cena, what made him so successful, was that he had proper build-up and people were behind him. On his way up, he went from a mid-card guy, a nobody to a mid-card guy to a nobody to a tag team guy to a mid-card guy to main event status. He had the perfect ascension. Roman Reigns, not so much. And I feel like if they can kind of get back on the right track with him, maybe give him the U.S. title before going back to the world title, will do wonders for him in the end. They just can't rush it too quickly, or otherwise he will be a failure. I don't think he's going to be a failure, but he could be if they, push him way too hard and people just reject him and they don't turn him heel, whatever. He needs more time to get better. @SwagsYo, their question was, if you could ask Vince McMahon and Triple H both one question each, what would it be? Wow, that's a great question. Well, you didn't say each. I just threw that one in there. I think that's what you meant though. One question for each guy. And I was going to put some, I was going to take some time. You asked this last night. And I saw the question. I was going to take like today to think about it because it's a really good question. One of the most thought-provoking questions, I've gotten in quite some time. Because it's really in-depth. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And all the questions are great. But this one is just specifically difficult for me, especially. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. Like, say, as an interview, I got to talk to Chris Jericho. I think this is a pretty good example, I think. I got to talk to Chris Jericho a couple of weeks ago. And hopefully I'll be able to upload the interview, like the audio version, here on the channel at some point. I just couldn't release it right away due to legal concerns from WWE's end. But the interview itself in written form is on hiddenremote.com. Came out really, really great. I think Jericho is an awesome interview, an amazing guy, an idol of mine. But originally, I was given 15 minutes to talk to him. It cut my time down to 10. So I had to cut down a few of my questions. So I had to think of questions, the most important ones or ones that I really wanted to know. So that came to be with the case with Vince and Triple H, then, what would I ask them? For Vince, it's kind of a dumb question, I know, but this, something that not needs to be asked, but, something I would love to get the answer to. For me personally, this is not because, for everybody to know. Maybe it is for a lot of people. I think a lot of people would know, but it's not the most important question ever. For Vince, off the top of my head, I did not write these down. I should have, but I didn't. I did not prepare for this question properly. For Vince, I would ask, why don't you just buy TNA? Is it because you don't have enough money, which I think is bullshit? I know that the Carter family is very, very wealthy, but if he wanted to, he could just buy TNA. Why do you not buy TNA? Do you want to see them survive? Do you want competition? I know TNA is here and WWE is up here, like not even, all the way above the screen. I know it's, a complete 180, and there will never, ever be competition in WWE. But do you want the alternative? Do you want the variety? Why don't you just buy TNA? I would love to know, because they never acknowledge them. It's not like, they give them free publicity and then they don't buy them out. Like with ECW, I know they eventually bought them out, but you know what I mean? They wanted to help them get better. Either for Vince, why don't you buy TNA, or why do you not acknowledge TNA? They acknowledge everything else. They acknowledge Ring of Honor. They acknowledge New Japan Pro Wrestling on their website and stuff. Why don't you acknowledge TNA, and why don't you buy them out? I think that'd be a pretty good question. I feel like that's something I would love to know, and a few other people. Not the most important question ever, but I would love to know. Triple H. Oh, wow. I mean, I think Stone Cold asked both these guys a lot of great questions. And a good tie-in, too, because Jericho's talking to John Cena tonight. I'm looking for that on the WWE Network. What question would I ask Triple H? I've never been a major Triple H fan, so I'm trying to think of, questions that are pertaining to, since I've started watching and stuff like that. Actually, I would ask Triple H one question. When Vince passes away or steps down, probably the former, right? I think we all can agree that he's not going to step down until the day he dies. But with Triple H, when he does take over, I know it's not going to be just him. It's not going to be just Stephanie. It's not going to be a bunch of corporate guys. It's going to be a lot of people running WWE at once. I understand that. But a very broad question. But what's the first thing that you would do as the chairman of WWE when you took over? I mean, Triple H gives a lot of good company-oriented questions and answers. He did that on Stone Cold's podcast. Still a great podcast, but he was very, very safe with what he said. And smart on his part. But I would love to get that candid answer. What's the first thing that you would do? And don't, give me the answer I want to help the talent. Feel free to say, I want to, give the tag team division the attention it deserves that Vince never gave them, or whatever. I would love to know what his first move would be as WWE chairman. So, in review here, my two questions for Vince: why don't you buy TNA / why don't you acknowledge them? And for Triple H, I know that's kind of two questions to one. I'm cheating here, but you get my point. And with Triple H, what's the first thing that you would do as WWE chairman? Final question here from @Unsolved22. Their question was, do you see Bray Wyatt being gone for a couple months now that Undertaker is gone? No, I don't think so. I know he didn't work last week. He didn't work Raw because he was still injured, which is fine. I mean, they didn't really need him on the show anyway, because like you said, Undertaker's gone, so they're not going to continue that feud. They're not going to continue it. So, and on SmackDown, he worked a dark match, and again, they're not going to have him come back on SmackDown. So, he could be back tonight for all we know. So, I don't think he's going to be gone. But what's next for him? I have no idea. I've been spending some time thinking about this. We talked about it on Wrestle Rant Radio last week. What can you do with Bray Wyatt now that he's done with The Undertaker? And, I mean, there's a couple things you could do. I mean, there's a few feuds. There's guys with, Sheamus and not Sheamus, well, because he's heel. Dolph Ziggler, maybe the thing with Daniel Bryan for an IC title. I feel like Bray needs a win right now coming out of the loss to The Undertaker. And that said, I just don't know what you do with him. I feel like turning him face is not the right solution, or at least not right now. And the guy needs a win at Extreme Rules, so I feel like facing, and that's not going to happen anyway. Bryan's already facing Barrett and Sheamus and maybe even Ziggler in a 4-way, so that's not going to happen. I don't want to see Wyatt versus Cena again. God forbid I don't want to see that feud again or that match again anytime soon, if ever again. But I really just don't know what you do. I feel like, maybe keeping him off TV would, give him a reboot. But we saw that a couple months ago, and he did come back stronger than ever. But you need to keep him on TV. He's a great talent. They need more heels right now. But the thing with Undertaker and John Cena and all those other guys, sure, it's a great step forward for the guy in his first year with the company. But like I've said time and time again, there's nowhere to go but down. That's why guys like Sheamus, I mean, he was stale for a very, very long time because they pushed him to the top way too quickly. After winning the world title and the WWE title, what left is there for the guy to do? You know what I mean? Because anything else under that feels like a step down. Same thing with a guy like Del Rio, after winning the world title and WWE title, what else do you do? Because it all feels like a demotion. So Bray Wyatt, I feel like, will have that same case, unfortunately, coming out of WrestleMania after working with guys like Daniel Bryan, guys like John Cena and The Undertaker. So where he goes from here, I really have no idea. But I don't really want to see him take more time off because we already saw that last fall. And it worked out for the better. But I would love to see them reunite the Wyatt family because they're not doing anything with Luke Harper. They're kind of doing the thing with Dean Ambrose right now, but you can reunite those guys. And I don't want to see Wyatt versus Dean, but again, or at least anytime soon. But reunite the Wyatt family, I think would be good. Aside from that, I really have no idea what they're going to do with Bray Wyatt. We'll probably find out more tonight on Raw. And if you're watching this after the fact, you know better than I would. And I look forward to seeing where Bray Wyatt goes from here. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of Hashtag Ask GSM. Like I said earlier, guys, thank you so much for sending all the questions. It really means a lot to me. A lot of awesome questions this week. A lot of thought-provoking, eccentric, innovative, exciting questions that I'm always happy to answer. Send in 1, send in 5. Can't always go as in-depth. Like right now, we went over an hour this week, which is perfectly cool. I make enough time in my schedule to do this video and edit it and put it up and stuff like that. I enjoy doing it. If I didn't enjoy doing it, I wouldn't do it weekly. I wouldn't be doing 73 episodes for the last 2 years, you know what I mean? So, that said, like I said, if you want to send in a question, send in 1, send in multiple. You can tweet me on Twitter at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSN. Find me on Facebook at Graham Jason Matthews. You can leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights or the wall itself. The link is down below. Speaking of down below, you can leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll be sure to include your question in next week's video. So as always, guys, hopefully you guys had a great weekend and enjoyed your Easter. Enjoy Raw tonight if you're watching this beforehand, and be sure to have a great week as well. And I'll catch you guys next Monday.